What is up, everybody? Welcome you back to the channel. We're talking Devy risers and fallers. What we like to do throughout the college football season every week is talk about some players that have risen in value and declined in value. And we look at it from a trade market perspective, a rankings perspective, and just a very micro view of what they've done week to week. Now, we will do bigger weeks. We'll talk about trends throughout the season, but I really caution people just to jump at value rises week in, week out in college football. It can fluctuate so much. I remember when Quentin Johnson had a really, really rough junior year to start the year, and people were really shocked with him, and then he ended up being a first round pick. Now, that has not panned out in the NFL. Maybe we should have taken notice about that, but that is definitely how it can rise and decline in value out there for some of your assets. But when we're looking at the first one, we're going to go through three guys that we liked that had very good games or just a positive outcome. And then we're going to be looking at two players that had a negative outcome in bad games. So first one up is Ashton Jeanty, running back out there at Boise State. You can't ask for a better game from him. 20 attempts, 267 yards, 6 touchdowns. Absolutely smashed it, right? When you're looking at his PFF grades, 89.8 run grade, yards after contact, 161, yards after contact per attempt, 805 there. Missed tackles force is 11. I think, when you're looking at him in his game and what translates really well, it's that missed tackles force. I think his ability to make guys miss in the open field, the agility, those type of things, those are things that you like. Those are things you want to see from him. And then moving forward from an asset, and especially at a Boise State, right? A small school program. Hey, those G5 guys don't necessarily always pan out in the NFL. Well, can he make guys miss? Can he build kind of that dual threat from a receiving standpoint and a rushing standpoint? Can he stay out there in third downs? He can do all of those things, right? And his elusive rating was absolutely phenomenal. 385.0. We're going to contrast that with one of my fallers, and it's going to be kind of funny to look at it. But Ashton Jeanty did a lot of good things out there that you'd like to see from a running back, especially now from a Devy perspective. Because, Jeanty's been across the board. I was one of those ones that's hesitant to draft him based on where he was going in drafts. But if you got him in the second round, I mean, that's easy right there because I've already seen it out there. People are talking about him being a first round running back. If that's the case, if there's people in your league that think he can be that, that's the type of value you can have that you can do with trades, right? In Devy, you can kind of extrapolate that later in the season if he continues to have a good year and go get a real dynasty asset to help you win your league. And that's what you're excited about, especially at the running back position, right? This peak running back value is during the season. That's when peak value hits, and not when the Senior Bowl hits, not when these combine stuff happens. Now, over time, maybe if they're getting a little positive buzz, but we don't really see a ton of positive buzz from the running back position after the season. So use that to your advantage as you kind of look at it from Devy asset. But Ashton Jeanty, man, I mean, there's even Heisman buzz out there. So he had definitely had his value rise as the week went on, as he kind of kept getting those touchdowns. So shout out Ashton Jeanty for having a hell of a year. Now, Tetairoa McMillan, man, what else does it say? 10 catches, 304 yards, 4 touchdowns. He smashed, right? PFF grades, 93.4 receiving grade. Yards per route run, 10.48. ADOT, 17.5. And yak per reception, 17 per 6. This dude was phenomenal, right? And I think that, when you're looking at it from a perspective, hey, played New Mexico, understanding kind of competition level, he's still awesome. He's still, like I said, he was Mike Evans last year for me. He's Mike Evans still, just maybe a little lighter on the lighter side there. But got to love that he had no drops. And I believe out of the 10 receptions, he had 15 targets. So that's positive sign there. Missed tackles for us. He is he's agile enough, and he has the ability to make guys miss in open field. Like, he'll have those missed tackles for us too. That's why I think he's kind of a unicorn of a prospect, right? I think he fits the NFL when you're looking at his splits between outside and in the slot. It was about 65-35. You like that because he can line up kind of anywhere. I think that the thing that stands out about Tet and the thing that he can be able to do, his versatility and the way that NFL offensive coordinators can use him, they're going to love that about him. And I think that's the exciting part. I think him and Luther Burden are still there, though. Like, we have Ted ahead in his rankings. We've had that for a while, but don't forget about Luther. Didn't have a great first week, but he's still out there, and he's going to have a bounce back week here pretty soon. Now, next guy, Kevin Concepcion. He's a guy that we've liked here, wide receiver out of NC State. Week 1, he had 9 catches, 121 yards, and 3 touchdowns. You have to like what he was able to put up in that offense. Now, they struggled a little bit, but they were able to kind of, they were able to bounce back a little bit. He has a big game this week. So that's the other thing about this. He's going to be playing Tennessee. What does that look like on a national stage? You're going to see that. But you have to like what he did, right? 5'11", 187. So he's a smaller guy. But at 187, you kind of like that weight there. From just a PFF grade, 73.6. Yards per route run, 3.56. And 8.1. You do see a lot of stuff behind the line of scrimmage, but he was able to capitalize, right? Those 3 touchdowns you liked. Did have a drop, but really what plays into his game. Quick passes, getting the ball quick. And really, to be honest with you, Grayson McCall is not going to be able to throw it deep. Grayson McCall can't throw it deep. That's just the reality of it. He can throw it mid, sidelines, those type of things. But, he's going to be able to get Concepcion the ball, and Concepcion is going to score. Like, that's just the reality of it. Shout out to him, because you have to like where he's at. As far as those sophomore wide receivers, Eugene Wilson didn't necessarily have a great game. Maybe Concepcion's a guy that people were sleeping on a little bit, that could definitely rise up in value and kind of be that maybe late first round draft value, right? For Devy drafts, probably mid second. But that is a rise in value as of we thinking right now. Now, I put this guy on here just for my amusement. Matthew Golden is a guy that I've liked for a long time when he was at Houston. Goes to Texas, and people kind of slept on it a little bit. I think slept on it as a transfer. You know what? He didn't have a ton of targets, but he had 3 catches, 50 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And to me, just looking at it from perspective of someone who has Matthew Golden and Devy, I like to see that. At least he's producing, right? And if he's producing, then we have a shot, because, he was kind of one of those guys that, he's going to that crowded room, has Isaiah Bond there. What kind of targets you're going to see there out of him. But if he can be efficient with those targets, right, and score touchdowns like he has, and 2 touchdowns is really good. He's at 13 combined touchdowns out the last 2 years at Houston, so he's up to 15 for his career, over 1,000 yards receiving. There's still an outside shot for an NFL, right? So NFL value, that's what you like in Devy. Like, he still has his chance there. So Golden is one of those guys. I think Texas might have one of the better offenses, the top 3 offenses in college football, especially if Quinn Ewers can sling it like he did last week. Any Arch Manning out there, 5 for 6, the touchdown as well. You have to like that. And then from a receiving standpoint, Ryan Wingo looked good, Isaiah Bond looked good, Cook looked good, but Golden could be that sleeper guy, right? Kind of, when you're thinking of just that guy, that's just a glue guy, right? Golden maybe is coming that glue guy that you really like to see from them, like a Whittington type, a Jordan Whittington type that they had last year. Maybe Matthew Golden's that guy with the big playability. And I really do like him, right? His 8 out over 10, yak per receptions over 9. That is positive. So shout out Matthew Golden having a positive week. Big game against Michigan. We'll see what he does in week 2. Now let's get negative. Let's talk about some of our, fallers, those Devy fallers that we like to see. First one is Donovan Edwards. Man, this hurts, because I'm a Michigan fan, as you can tell by me wearing the shirt, but also just the fact that, I liked him 2 years ago. He was very, very efficient. He was so good. In 2022, he had 117 carries, 872 yards. He added 192 yards receiving, but just looked explosive, and he still is explosive. But you just don't see it as much. And I think part of that is the vision, right? Like, anybody can run through the holes that he was running through the last couple of years in that Michigan offensive line. This year, rebuilt unit, going to take some time there. Hasn't seen that, but 11 attempts and 27 yards against Fresno State. And I know Fresno State's better than average. I have season tickets to Fresno State. But against Fresno State at home, 11 attempts, 27 yards, and a 0 elusive rating. Compare that to Asher Genty, who had 375. What are we doing here? I just, he could bounce back against Texas. Maybe he has those big plays. And I still think he has big plays ability in him. But what worries me the most, outside of the 0 missed tackle force, the explosive runs just weren't there this last week, his receiving ability, right? Only 2 receptions last game. He did have that, when you're looking at the touchdown and everything there. But from, we expecting more from him, right? We expect, hey, get over that 300, 400 yards receiving, be a threat there. And I think that if Alex Orji doesn't start for Michigan, that hurts Edwards more, because this team was built on Alex Orji, like the ability to get the speed options, the read options, all of that. If it's not, I don't see Edwards if he can't get out in space, right? If they can't use the option and those type of things to get him out of space, he's going to struggle. And I think Khalil Mullings, the backup running back there, it definitely has an opportunity to overtake him in that backfield. And that's going to be just destroy his Devy value. And that's one thing to kind of know when you're looking at some of these risers and fallers. Now, the last guy, Connor Weigman, was terrible, right? 12 for 30, 100 yards, 2 interceptions. That is not good enough at the quarterback position for Texas A&M. We've talked about this 25 class. And for guys like Jackson Dart, Shedeur Sanders, Jalen Monroe, these guys actually looked pretty good. Miller Moss looked better than Connor Weigman, right? From USC, Garrett Nussmeier. All of these guys looked much better than Connor Weigman, and he just didn't look good against Notre Dame. Now, Notre Dame has a very good defense. It's one of those defenses that I tout, I really like, but not great for his prospects. This is why you tend to stay away from those Devy quarterbacks. Connor was a QB1/2-ish of his class. You're looking at like Cade Klubnik, same thing. These guys just kind of fell off the map. I could have included Cade Klubnik on a faller as well. That's why it's so scary drafting Devy quarterbacks, because they have the ability just to fall off the map, right? Me and Jay talked about on the podcast that we do for Devy. We talked about Dylan Raiola. Nola. Looks pretty good, but so did Connor Weigman in the beginning of his career for Texas A&M. Now, he can bounce back, but he's definitely a faller because so many of this class is so loaded with kind of mid-level talent at the QB position. But if some guys have those spike weeks, you're going to see those guys kind of go up in value more. Whereas Connor, if he continues to struggle here, I mean, we're not talking about him coming out this year. I mean, we'd be talking about maybe him transferring, right? I know there was a joke on social media where I saw DJ Lagway going to Texas A&M is going to look really good next year. Like, that is a legit possibility in this transfer portal era. And Connor Weigman just didn't perform well. Just one of those guys that just didn't play well. Quarterback out there at Texas A&M. So those are some of our Devy risers and fallers. Now, remember, don't put too much into the first couple weeks or even just 1 week, right? But it depends on your league mates. If your league mates do put that in there, use that to your advantage. If they're trying to get off of a prospect, maybe it's a good time to buy some of these guys. I wouldn't buy Donovan Edwards or Connor Weigman, but some of these guys maybe have a bad performance, but some of these guys have good performances. Look at your roster on the dynasty side. Say, hey, what pieces do I need? Can I move off of him? We had a very, very good discussion about Ted McMillan's value on the podcast, so go download that. But other guys too, as they pop up. The one thing I will always say is I'm moving running backs, right? Ashton Genty, some of these guys that look very good early in the season. I don't mind moving off those running backs because the position is so volatile and you can grab production elsewhere to go grab a real dynasty piece to go try to win your league. I would definitely look forward to that. Look towards that as we get closer to the middle of the season. So appreciate you guys tuning in. Go check out the Patreon. Go check out the Substack. We don't plug that as much, but we have, pushing up to 500 subscribers already on Substack. We got content out there. If you're in C2C or CFF, every Monday, Andy Pham is dropping a waiver wire article. You need to go check that out to be subscribed to that. Christian's going to be doing quarterbacks, kind of looking at that. I'm going to be doing some dynasty articles and Devy articles and some betting articles. So go take a look over at our Substack as well. You can find that in the description. So appreciate you guys. Check you guys next time.